We are back for another edition of the Fight HQ podcast. Of course, I am Jason Floyd. That is the fighter, Pete Rogers Jr. We're here to break down UFC Atlantic City, which goes down here on Saturday night there. And we are in front of fans, which I think that as we look at, Pete, some of the fighters on this card, I do feel like, and me and Pete were talking about this before the show, like I do feel like there's a couple fighters on this card that could be potential in a way to sit there and, maybe a little bit of a showcase fight for them in the UFC.
Yeah, I mean, promoters are smart, right? You want to have local guys a part of every card to, sell the tickets, get some locals in attendance. They also would love it if the locals win, as far as like for returning in the future, and looking good in front of the home crowd. But man, some of these hometown guys, in my opinion, are in some tough matchups, right? Like Chris Weidman, in my opinion. I mean, like it's not the same. He's a New York guy, but Jersey, New York, very close. He's going to have a ton of people in attendance, but yeah, there's a couple local guys that should look good, and like the Tiger Schulman guy, Julio Arce, should look fantastic, but he's approaching damn near 6-1 favorite. It's gonna be kind of crazy.
Yeah, so we're going to break that down this one for you here over the next hour. So if you got any questions, be sure to line those up in the chat. As always, we appreciate everyone who tunes in each and every week for the Fight HQ podcast. Of course, a great way to show your support for the channel is by hitting that subscribe button, hit that like button. That truly does help us out a ton. Of course, if you want to take advantage of some of the offers we have, check those down in the show notes. And, of course, we got our DraftKings contest. We'll get that contest up here as the week goes on. But congratulations to B. Rubby taking on the contest last week, scoring 575 points. Even had AJ Dobson in his lineup, getting him 14 points going out there and getting the victory. But you also had Trey Ogden, Peyton Talbot, Yusuf Zalal, kudos to him, and Carl Williams out there, all getting almost all those guys getting out there 100 points. So congratulations. We'll get that contest going here later on in the show. But Pete, let's get right into this UFC Atlantic City as we talk about game theory. And me and Pete were kind of talking a little bit before the show, and there's some fights on here that really stick out to you. Like, I mean, I know Sam likes to joke about your favorite fight of the week, the 8,200, 8,000 fight. That's the co-main event this week. It's one of those fights that I find myself drawn to just because I think just one guy is just better than the other. And I feel like there's a lot of value on Vicente Luque, but like, probably goes 15 minutes, so maybe not optimal score. But then there's some underdogs on this card that I look at and say, like, I look at someone like an Andre Petroski at 7,200 and go, it's intriguing to me.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know, man. It's just such a weird card for me, from top to bottom. Like, you have the co-main event between Vicente Luque and Joaquin Buckley. Like, clearly the more skilled fighter is Vicente Luque. Like, I mean, he checks way more boxes. He's the more technical guy on the feet. He has the better submission arsenal, sneaky wrestling as well. He's just a veteran who's taken a ton of damage throughout his career, but man, he's really only been taken out of there by Jeff Neal. He's been hurt and rocked numerous times, but man, that durability has checked out, and he has some really, really solid wins. So this is a massive step up in competition for Joaquin Buckley, but everything in this game is about timing. The timing could be perfect for Joaquin Buckley. I mean, Vicente Luque is removed from having a brain bleed like a year or so ago. So very scary situation. Was able to get back into the win column with a win over Rafael Dos Anjos. Went to the takedowns a lot more than normal. Went 8 of 11 in the takedown department, which was kind of crazy because the fight before that, it was back in 2017, the last time he attempted a takedown. So I think that he wanted to go out there and get a safe win. But yeah, I mean, this could be the passing of a torch. This could be the veteran kind of holding his ground and being that gatekeeper, but picking up a victory over the younger Joaquin Buckley. Outside of that, like the underdogs, man, I was trying to make a case for an underdog before the show with you, and then I still might do it. Because of the pace and the situation, but I do view the Chidi Njokuani and Rhys McKee fight as something that's going to be pretty sneaky. Chidi Njokuani is clearly the better striker of the two. I mean, if it was a 1-round fight all the time, Chidi Njokuani might be undefeated. I mean, he's unbelievable in round 1. The cardio is really suspect, and now we're talking about him dropping down to welterweight, which is not going to help the gas tank. He will get a size advantage in a situation like that, but man. So outside of that, right, like we got some affordable options. Some women's MMA underdogs, which I really don't mind getting behind some of them. And outside of that, it's like I think the underdogs won't necessarily get a finish. I think that they could end up winding up, getting 80-something points in a decision win.
Yeah, I mean, Virna Jandiroba at 7,500 plus 170 underdog is one that sticks out to me. We'll talk about that fight a little bit later on the show, but when you look at who she's lost to in the UFC, it is the top of this division, and kind of how does it play out with Loopy Godinez. We all know the grappling ability that she does have there. And then, we do have a rematch on this card, on the prelims. Of course, initial matchup that took place over there in Brave, which, by the way, you can check that fight over there on YouTube. I was actually watching that a little bit earlier. Actually, was watching a little bit of that last night. So, of course, if you got any questions, be sure to line those up in chat. Scott, I appreciate it. He's over here saying, he goes, I'm doing a parlay of Pete's picks and Jason's picks. Just throw $5 on it,
So, I mean, we've gone undefeated in the past, but man, it's definitely really difficult. But it's a lottery ticket is what it is. But, I don't end up doing that a lot for my own picks just because it's so difficult. But I should with small money because you never know.
Yeah, I mean, look, when you're talking about 10 plus fights, I mean, the reality of hitting all fights on a UFC card, we would love to say we can do it. We would love to say we can do it, but it just comes down. I mean, look, you remember the line by Gus Johnson years ago? These things happen in MMA.
Oh, yeah.
If you would have told me last week, we're going to have a dude DQ because he bit his opponent's arm, and then the dude who gets bit goes to a tattoo artist that night. Like,
I know. Well, he got that bonus, man. He got bit. So he got that I got bit bonus, which was pretty crazy.
I've seen some weird things in this sport. That's at the top of the list.
Yeah, so I mean, what happened was that one fighter, I forget their names already. One fighter was
Lima and Severino.
Yes, Andre Lima was grabbing the cage repeatedly, which impeded some takedowns. 100%. Should have got a warning. Probably should have maybe even got a point deducted. I thought Severino was looking great throughout all those fouls. He was still getting takedowns and getting control and pushing a pace, and it did seem like the more technical fighter on the outside was Andre Lima. The pace pusher was Severino, and he was still getting takedowns. But frustration boils over. In the heat of the moment, he tries to do something and get one back for all those fouls. I mean, man, there's other ways to get one back. Biting somebody is just absolutely inexcusable. And then biting somebody like a bite's a bite, but that was a real big chomp. You know what I mean? Like that was a pretty legitimate one. It looked like a shark bit him. But yeah, I mean, like the broadcaster was like, I'd like to see a warning. I'm like, dude, if he really bit him, it's not like he's going for a rear naked choke and his arm got in his mouth somewhat. That happens a lot. But he legitimately just like bit the inside of his arm, which is a strange location. And I think the DQ was absolutely justified, especially after seeing, what the bite looked like on Andre Lima's, bicep.
I mean, this is sport, bro.
Yeah, oh yeah, man. And things weirder stuff will happen and things will get worse.
Here's the crazy thing about Severino. Kid's 25 years old.
Now he's
probably never gets another shot in UFC ever again.
No,
it's kind of like it reminds me of the Paul Daly situation from all those years ago when he hit Koscheck after the bell. Like,
yep.
I mean,
you just ruined your career.
And look, and the commission hasn't even paid him yet.
Yeah, I know the withholding. I mean, like that's pretty bad. That's pretty bad for you to commit that foul. So I don't care what the repercussions are. He's going to have to go fight somewhere else. He's going to have to hope that one day he gets an opportunity in PFL or Bellator. But even then, man, like the commissions, like say it happened up here in New England, the commissioner is going to contact fellow commissions and might put a permanent ban or a long suspension on him. Like we could be talking multiple years. You don't know. I mean, some commissioners will really put their foot down, and that's a situation that you probably don't belong fighting if you're doing that shit.
Yeah, I mean, look at, I don't know if you saw this. Walt Harris just got a 4-year suspension for 2 positive drug tests. There was another. I remember seeing there was another fighter who just got a 2-year suspension as well. But man, yeah, I don't. It's one of those things where I don't know if he ever fights again in terms of a notable MMA promotion. I don't even know if PFL will take a chance on him. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just it's MMA's version of Mike Tyson. You know, when you think about what happened with Mike Tyson all those years ago with Evander Holyfield. I mean, it's just right when I think this sport can't surprise me, it surprises me.
Oh, yeah, it will.
You know,
It will.
yeah, it always surprises me. But let's get right into these fights here. Of course, the main event is a big matchup here in the female division. We got Erin Blanchfield taking on Manon Firot. We all know Manon Firot is a Pete the Heat fighter. We all know you're always backing her. Of course, she's the underdog in this situation. See 7,400 DK, 8,800 for Erin Blanchfield. Blanchfield is approaching a 2-to-1 betting favorite. She's minus 190, and from Manon Firot, she is plus 160. Let's get your thoughts, man.
Yeah, it's crazy. I love both of them, right? Like I've been an Erin Blanchfield backer, flag planted her as the fighter to watch within women's flyweight. We got Manon Firot, who's always been a tough out and another prospect, but a little bit more of an aged prospect, looking absolutely on another level inside the UFC. TKO wins over Victoria Leonardo, Tabitha Ricci, and then 4 decision wins over Mayra Buena Silva, Jennifer Maia, Caitlin Seminara, and Rose Namajunas. What she's really good at is distance striking, and she has better footwork than Erin Blanchfield. Blanchfield's a plotter on the feet, but she pushes a pace, and she really gets in her opponent's face, and we'll try to implement her game, which is, tons of volume with the takedowns. Her jiu-jitsu is on a completely another level than anybody within this division, and same with her wrestling's okay. It's somewhat lacking, if I'm being honest. Like, there have been moments within Erin Blanchfield's career where you're like, oh boy, okay. Like, I remember when she was like a minus 500 favorite against JJ Aldrich in round 1. She didn't look good. She was getting peppered from the outside, which is exactly what Manon Firot can do. Not finding success with takedowns, with 0 of 4 in the takedown department. Ended up snatching up a guillotine and got not necessarily lucky, but kind of bailed herself out as a large favorite, right? Like, time's ticking. In a 15-minute fight, you approach that midway point. Dominant decisions over Sarah Alpar and Miranda Maverick, where the takedowns, they did have success. 3 of 3 and 7 of 8. Dominant victory over Molly McCann. Dominant victory over Jessica Andrade. Big step up in competition here against Tyla Santos. Like, the fight was blah, but I do find that win to hold some value because Tyla Santos had such a really competitive fight with Shevchenko and arguably won that bout. She wasn't able to find success with takedowns, with 0 of 14 in the takedown department, but at least in her fight, she's getting some control time. 8 minutes in that bout by keeping Tyla Santos against the cage. Even though she didn't find success, she kept going back to the well. The issue here in this match is that I do think Manon Firot has the tools to win it. If it was a 3-round fight, I think I'd be picking Manon Firot, if I'm being honest, Jason, just because her takedown defense is good. It's solid, but it hasn't been met with anybody on Blanchfield's level as far as just like relentlessness. The cardio from Manon Firot does look like it deteriorates over time. Granted, it's tough to go 15 minutes or 25 minutes and keep a crazy, crazy pace. The girl throws with ridiculous volume. She could volume Blanchfield up from the outside and just kind of dance her way to a decision victory. But it really takes one takedown from Blanchfield, and it could be all she wrote. So, like, I do think early on we see Manon Firot get out ahead, 2 rounds to none. And then it's from rounds 3 into the championship rounds. I'm kind of expecting the forward pressure of Blanchfield, the takedown attempts, the cage control to start to wear on Manon Firot into an eventual Erin Blanchfield decision victory or a late finish as far as a submission. But, like, I do have worries here. I don't mind stacking the bout, if I'm being honest. I know stacking's not really a recommendation from this channel, but, like, if other underdogs, don't come through, I could see a Manon Firot in a loss still doing enough. I mean, like, the issue when I see these numbers and I watch the optics of the fights, 279 significant strikes thrown, 98 landed against Caitlin Seminara. 225 thrown at Rose Namajunas, 58 landed. What the hell is with the other 175 strikes going on here? Like, where are they going? So she's kind of, she's striking on the outside. She has a really good sidekick, good footwork. But I do think eventually Blanchfield puts her against the cage. I think the line's off, though. I think it should be closer to a pick'em. So the value is clearly on Manon Firot, but I'm
Hmm.
still going to back Blanchfield to get 3 of the 5 rounds. So Blanchfield at 8,800, I think, is a good play, but I think she's shown some concerns though, like 80 against Tyler Santos, 94 against JJ Aldrich, which is still really good, but like it wasn't looking good in that JJ Aldrich fight. And I'm not in love with Blanchfield striking, so it's a Blanchfield lean to me, but I do think the line's slightly off.
And I was telling Pete right before the show, I just feel like the line's inflated a little bit here on Aaron Blanchfield. I think this fight's much closer than what the betting line and the DraftKings line sits on this fight. I mean, if you would have told me that this was I feel like this is more like it would have been like that 8,400, 7,800 fight in terms of these ones. And I mean, look, and Aaron Blanchfield knows what she's fighting for here. I think both these fighters know what they're fighting for here. I mean, you have the potential. I mean, obviously, this division's a little bit on hold at this point because of the fact of Grasso and Shevchenko are coaching the Ultimate Fighter. They're actually filming the Ultimate Fighter right now in Las Vegas. I believe it's going to be the main event of the September card there at the Spear in Las Vegas. It seems like that's going to likely be the main event of that fight card if it's not a pay-per-view. Just kind of sense that it's going to be a fight night card. But I do lean Aaron Blanchfield in this one. It's just, but you know, something you were talking about there, and obviously we're not two guys that really love stacking fights. Yeah. My issue is we've got 14 fights. And
it's probably not likely, right?
Yeah, I mean, from like a cat, if you're going into the mindset of a cash perspective, I don't mind stacking the fight, but I think in terms of GPPs, I feel like in terms of GPPs,
you need to get some good bounces. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of GPPs, if you're looking at underdogs, I don't mind getting no Firot, but there's probably some underdogs I wouldn't mind getting to as well. Of course, the 5-round nature of this aspect always kind of gets you in terms of that one. But like you, my sense is I think this thing's going 25 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I think so as well. I mean, last week you had Amanda Hebos who has some durability concerns, but yet her durability still checked out against Rose Namajunas. And, you know, it's... You're starting women's MMA for the longest time was close decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Then we started to find some finishes for a long time. Like I would just kind of fade women's MMA if I didn't think it was going to be high scoring because I figured it was going the distance.
Yeah.
Nowadays it's a little bit different. We do see some mismatches. I think this is a very competitive fight. And neither one of them would shock me as far as picking up the victory, but I do lean with Erin Blanchfield.
I do as well. Let's move over to our co-main event. This is the Pete special of the fight card. This is your A2000, 8,000 fight. Vicente Luque taking on Joaquin Buckley. Vicente Luque is a small betting favorite in this one, minus 115, minus 105 for Buckley. Buckley is a 8,000 fighter. And of course, Vicente Luque is now a 200 fighter. Of course, something to note, when this fight card was initially announced, it was going to be Vicente Luque versus Sean Brady. A little bit of different styles. I mean, Brady, I want to say pulled out within like the first week or two this fight getting announced. I mean, it was pretty quickly of when Brady pulled out of this due to an injury. And Joaquin Buckley is one of these guys we've always talked about, Pete. You talk about the evolution of a fighter. And you think about where Joaquin Buckley was when he was on the regional scene, and he got the Bellator, and now we look at the UFC. Like, to me, he's the definition of the evolution of a fighter.
Yeah, I mean, I fought on the same card as Buckley. I didn't know who the hell he was. I just, he went in there and was wrestling a lot. So when he came into the UFC, I figured that he would kind of go back to what I saw of him. And he started to just go out there and strike people up. And then clearly the best knockout in the history of knockouts, in my opinion, catapulted his career. And then you're trying to live up to the hype and knock people out because it's much easier to knock people out, get a quick check, than it is to fight for 15 minutes and wrestle all day. Go in there, get a quick bonus. The issue here, I mean, I think it's an opportunity, right? Like it's smart for Joaquin Buckley to step up and take this fight against Vicente Luque because it's winnable. It is very winnable. And the reason I say that is because Vicente Luque has taken so much damage throughout his career. It's just, you don't know where the tipping point is. Like, is it going to be over if Joaquin Buckley lands a big looping shot, throws really, really wide, and it could get around the guard of Vicente Luque, but like I do think a beautiful straight left hand, similar to Jeff Neal, is there all day. I think that Vicente Luque might not be as gun shy as his previous fight against Rafael dos Anjos because he was actually in there. It wasn't his first fight back from the damn near tragedy of having to retire from MMA. So we could see Vicente Luque look a little bit better and a little bit more like himself. I think Vicente Luque's got really good counters, and he could really just catch and go and catch a hook from Joaquin Buckley in return fire and knock out Joaquin Buckley, and it wouldn't surprise me at all. If Joaquin leaves his neck out there, you have one of the best Darce chokes in the business with Vicente Luque. So the submission game of Vicente Luque is really, really game. I think that they're going to have moments and it's going to be competitive. And then it's going to go 15 minutes because I do think that Joaquin Buckley, for as explosive as he is, I think he's pretty smart and will try to do his best to pick up a smart victory, especially if it's going to further his career. I mean, he's made plenty of mistakes in the past. He's been knocked out numerous times. Is that chin completely gone? It could be. Got knocked out against Chris Curtis, knocked out against Alessio Di Chirico. I think that's his worst one. Getting knocked out in his debut against Kevin Holland, not so much. But back-to-back victories over Alex Morono and Andre Fiallo, combining his striking into his grappling. I think this goes 15 minutes, Jason. And even though I think Vicente Luque is the better fighter, I'm still going to back Joaquin Buckley to actually win a decision here. But I do think it goes 15 minutes. So, I mean, I want to see what the ownership's like. I would imagine 8,200, 8,000 is going to be completely like over-owned. But I might try to like cross my fingers and avoid this fight just in hopes that either it's a late finish or it goes the distance.
My overall thoughts and kind of some of you mentioned there, like I just think Luque is the better overall fighter. But
yeah,
as you were talking there, it kind of made me think about this aspect of, there becomes a point in a fighter's career that you go, at what point do I need to start to fade him? And you do kind of wonder, even though Luque is coming off that performance against RDA where, I mean, look, going into that fight, we did not expect Vicente Luque to go out there and take the takedown city route, which he absolutely did in that matchup. And it's one of these things of, when I was putting together some of my notes on this card, I was kind of like, man, like you go from fighting Sean Brady, clear lower top 10 type guy. Now you're taking on Joaquin Buckley, and it's a great opportunity for Joaquin Buckley, to step in and potentially get in top 10. But I'm with you. I think this goes 15 minutes, but I do lean Vicente Luque in this one. It just comes to the fact of, I just think he has the better skill set to go out there and work his way to a decision. But but from a GPP aspect, I don't mind getting away from this one.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, fair points. I'm not going to hate anybody back in Vicente Luque. I do think he is the better fighter, but every dog has its day, and it's all about timing. So I do think that the timing favors Joaquin Buckley here because if you go back a couple years ago, Vicente Luque blows the doors off of Joaquin Buckley, and it's not close. In 2024, it's a lot closer. So excited to see it. I'll probably take a stand and fade it a little bit more than the public, but it'll probably burn up in my face.
Yeah, I mean, you think about a couple years ago, if I would have told you Chris Weidman would be a 2-1 betting underdog against Bruno Silva, you'd probably call me crazy. But look, it's Chris Weidman, a plus 230 betting underdog against Bruno Silva, minus 280. Bruno Silva, 9,300. And for Chris Weidman, 6,900. I was watching a clip of Chris Weidman's interview with Erin Helwani, and Chris Weidman's always been like a favorite. I've always enjoyed, watching this guy fight, but there's this part of me that goes is there that real person in this fight camp that's like, Chris, the days of being a UFC champion are over?
I think that's Ray Longo, and Ray Longo's not a part of that camp no more. That's why he's not there. And clearly I think it's going to get around training partners your size. So splitting time with Stephen Thompson and Jimmo, or I believe, he's at Jimmo training. They got big guys. So it's really good to get around bodies that can help you train. But I do think that voice of reason is honestly Ray Longo. And he kind of talked about it on the Anik and Florian podcast. He's like, I don't think that this kid has anything to prove. He's done so much in the sport. And then he was kind of going on and then I don't know, maybe just hinting. I mean, he's a good coach and he cares about his guys. He doesn't want to see any of his guys get hurt. So who's been hurt a lot lately? And it's been Chris Weidman, right? He was unstoppable in the UFC. I mean, Alessio Sakara decision, finishes over Tom Lawler, Jesse Bongfeld, Damian Maia, Mark Munoz, back-to-back knockouts over Anderson Silva, Lyoto Machida, Vitor Belfort. But then Luke Rockhold kind of started that demise. Then Yoel Romero, then Gegard Mousasi, then picked up a favorable submission victory over Kelvin Gastelum after having to overcome adversity. Jacare Souza, Dominic Reyes, Uriah Hall, Brad Tavares, who doesn't knock out anybody, almost knocked him out. So, not to mention that just a completely the crazy injury in the Uriah Hall bout. So it's like, man, oh man, this guy's been through the ringer, and so much has been on his body lately, like so much wear and tear. Leg kicks. If he gets leg kicked or calf kicked, you're constantly worried about that leg, crumbling again. And the fight is still inside of him. He's not a quitter at all. He's tough as nails. I just think Father Time's undefeated and his time has passed, unfortunately. And that's why I scream at my guys that spar way too hard because they just don't get it. They're young and they're stupid. And they just want to go out there and have a ball training and they're sparring. I'm like, guys, if your best fights shouldn't be left in the gym, right? Because if you're getting your ass kicked in training all the time, it's good because it prepares you, but also it starts to chip away at that eventual decline of your chin. And now we see once that off switch is touched, it gets worse over time. And that's what's happened with Chris Weidman. With all that being said, he has a grappling edge in this matchup. He can take Bruno Silva down and submit him. But I haven't really seen any urgency with Weidman's submission game. As accomplished as he is as a jiu-jitsu practitioner and a wrestler, outside of Kelvin Gastelum, he attempted a submission against Gegard Mousasi. Then you have to go all the way back to Anderson Silva, where he attempted submissions, and that's back in 2013. So I just think that he's a wrestler that's fallen in love with his hands. Will probably get back to trying to wrestle, but I think he's going to get knocked out in the process. And Bruno Silva, as untrustworthy as he is, I think that he knocks out Chris Weidman in the first round. So I think Bruno Silva is a very strong play this week. Not the best skilled guy or most skilled guy, but I just think eventually he hits really hard, and he went to war with Alex Pereira. And then you look at several other matchups. Yeah, I think Bruno Silva knocks him out, and it's sad because I will be rooting for Chris Weidman.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned about trust issues. I don't know how you can trust Chris Weidman at this point in his career. I really don't. I don't know how you can do it.
No, I mean, it's a complete dart throw, and it could happen. Motivated with hometown people in attendance or neighboring state people in attendance. The whole world's doubting him. Sometimes it's better to be early on a fighter than late. So if you're feeling ballsy, play Chris Weidman, but I'm just not doing it. And it could happen, right? Like Bruno Silva's been taken down repeatedly and put in bad spots, but he does get back to his feet. If you do not find a finish, guess what? The next round starts standing up. And I think that's probably what's going to happen. Round 2, I changed my bet. Round 2 knockout Bruno Silva.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you're going to be a Weidman bettor, you have to be thinking he's going to wrestle. He's going to wrestle. But at this point in his career, I have no faith in Chris Weidman. And you listen to his interviews, and I really question who's in his ear. I really do. And this just feels like the old school UFC matchmaking of we've got an older guy. He's at the tail end of his career. He's on the back nine, and we want to prop up that up and coming guy. And I think that this is a question here. I think where Bruno Silva is that guy they're trying to prop up here. And I would if you want to take a stab on Chris Weidman, I don't mind it. But I just don't see it working out well for him.
I feel like there's so many better fighters to kind of give them that push than Bruno Silva. That's why this matchup to me makes no damn sense. It's just Bruno Silva's fine, but I don't know. He's not the next thing coming. And there are some prospects within that division. And is Bo Nickel 170 or 185?
85.
I don't know. You know what I mean? Give him somebody crazy, give him a crazy prospect. That makes it Bruno Silva. That's dangerous. And it's a lose-lose.
Yeah. I can't trust Chris Weidman at this point in his career. That's I remember, the Tavares fight. I was like, okay, maybe this could be the time, but I I just don't see it happening here. Next up, we got one fighter who's got some legal issues because he decided to go live on, I want to say it was Instagram, as he was getting arrested. That's Sedriques Dumas taking on Ruziboev. Ruziboev is a minus 260 betting favorite, plus 210 for Dumas. Ruziboev 9,200 and Dumas is 7,000. I just remember talking to people about Sedriques Dumas as he came up the regional scene, and he's just a guy that I'm always kind of looking to fade in his matchups here.
Yeah, I think he's a very troubled individual. And Sedriques Dumas at 7,000, picked up one of the biggest softball matchups against Cody Brundage and was able to kind of get on top in certain situations, get 2 reversals, had 11 minutes of control time. Horrible output. Horrible output in both fights, Josh Fremd and Cody Brundage. And nothing happened. It's kind of just like he just had better positioning and scored 78 points. I just don't think, outside of just landing a haymaker or landing something wild, getting lucky, I don't think that he beats Nursulton, Ruziboev anywhere. I think Ruziboev's clearly the better fighter, tons of submission victories, knockouts as well, can wrestle, can strike, very big for the division as well. And Sedriques Dumas is used to towering over his opponents. I think Nursulton, Ruziboev can get this done however he wants inside the distance. I do not think it goes 15 minutes. I think Sedriques Dumas probably realizes he's in for a long night and makes a mistake and gets finished inside of round 1. So Nursulton, Ruziboev at 9,200, similar to Bruno Silva. I kind of view them as like 1A, 1B, just because that they're priced affordably, not a crazy line, and I do think that they have significant upside.
Yeah, it's just Dumas is one of those guys that I feel like there's a couple of fighters on this card that I feel like the UFC might try to get away from in this one. I look at Dumas. I mean, yes, he's won 2 straight, but I could see where the UFC might be wanting to get out of that business here. And I feel like this is a little bit of a showcase matchup of Ruziboev here at 9,200. I would say this: I'd probably rather spend up the $1,000 more to get the Bruno Silva just because I like the upside, the knockout upside of Bruno Silva going against Chris Weidman, but I don't mind getting to the 9,200 price tag here as well. Now, there's a couple fighters on this card that I feel like it's kind of in a way with this fights being in front of fans, it's a little bit of a showcase matchup, and I think our next matchup is one of those, and that's Bill Algeo, who really, he made a career for himself there in the Northeast. Of course, now fighting back in New Jersey. He is a minus 245 betting favorite against Kyle Nelson. Algeo 9,100, and for Kyle Nelson, he is 7,100 on DK.
Yeah, so interesting fight. I'm kind of looking forward to this one just because I think Bill Algeo is pretty damn exciting for the featherweight division. Kyle Nelson, for whatever reason, sucks people into a slow-paced fight. I don't know what it is, but fighters, when they face Kyle Nelson outside of Billy Q, they kind of just I don't know. They're like in a trance. Blake Builder, Fernando Padilla, who had a phenomenal performance last weekend, just got sucked into just this slower paced, back and forth, muscle each other around type of bout. And Kyle Nelson's nothing special, but he can land takedowns and he's pretty physical, very, very, very basic. So he's completely live to pick up takedowns and maybe win 2 of 3 rounds against Bill Algeo. The issue is pacing. I think the reason that he fights at that slower pace is because he's unable to fight at a fast pace. It works for him. He makes them fight his fight. But when he's forced to actually push the pedal to the metal, he gets broken. We saw him get broken against Diego Ferreira. That was a long time ago. But the Billy Q fight was one where Billy Q went out there and was just a motor, and the motor completely broke Kyle Nelson. Now, Bill Algeo, I do think, is very talented. I don't think that he has the finishing skills like Billy Q, though. But I do think that he can put on a tremendous volume performance. He scored well in volume performances in the past. You don't just beat Alexander Hernandez and TJ Brown, damn near beating Andre Fili, Herbert Burns, Joe Anderson Brito, and lose to Kyle Nelson, in my opinion. If he does, that's kind of crazy to me, and that'd be a pretty big upset. But I think that Bill Algeo styles on him. I just don't like how he's a builder, and as the fight gets on, he gets stronger. And sometimes when you have fighters that are builders and they kind of are momentum based, that means that they're losing us an early portion of the fight. So I think round 2, round 3 props completely live for Bill Algeo. Bill Algeo via decision, completely live as well. I think that the skill gap, the pace gap, and the not hometown, but like looking
Yeah.
good in front of the Jersey crowd for Bill Algeo, I think is what the UFC wants. So give me Bill Algeo here at 9,100.
Yeah, I'm with Algeo in this one as well, and I agree with everything you said there. I mean, I almost feel like if you're looking at playing a prop, I feel like maybe looking at that Algeo wins via decision prop may be the best way to go.
Yeah, I don't hate it at all. I mean, like Kyle Nelson's been tough, and he's been tough to put away. But there's been a few times when I was kind of like, man, this guy broke, but he hasn't broken against Jai Herbert, Duho Choi, Blake Builder, or Fernando Padilla. So maybe Bill Algeo is able to go out there and you know, make Kyle Nelson question himself a little bit. But I think Kyle Nelson's tough enough to be a punching bag for 15 minutes.
Yeah, just pulling up the Algeo wins via decision. There's only 2 books out there that have a line on it. One is at plus 120. The other is at plus 125. I mean,
Yeah.
but you know, maybe you try to hunt those round 2, round 3 props if you're looking for some good plus money.
Yeah, not really the juiciest prop out there, which if I'm playing props, right? Like I tend to get a little ballsy with it, and I like to like get some actual good odds with it. But
Yeah.
I mean, Bill Algeo in general, I think is a parlay piece.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the one book that actually has some round props out there. Algeo wins round 2 plus 900. Algeo wins round 3 plus 1,200. So there is some lines out there, and you actually get a little better odds just when you go Algeo wins via unanimous decision. DraftKings Sportsbook has that plus 165, so you get a little bit more than the plus 120 with just have for decision here. But I do like Bill Algeo to go out there and get the victory here. Next up, we got a matchup that me and Pete were really talking a lot about before the show. That's Chidi Njokuani and Rhys McKee. Rhys McKee is a plus 125 betting underdog, minus 150 for Chidi Njokuani. Njokuani is 8,600, and for McKee, he is 7,600.
Yeah, I think this is going to be pivotal to the slate, man. I really do. And Chidi Njokuani is a fantastic striker, and actually has trained with one of my coaches from New Mexico that I talk about often, who's getting a ton of different fighters to go underneath his wing. Crew Dom works with Chidi Njokuani, and man, his striking is just so damn good. But there's an issue with his cardio, right? Like he's clearly an early round danger where he can knock anybody out within the welterweight or middleweight division. The issue here is his cardio is so bad, and now he's dropping down a weight class. So we're talking about from 185 to 170 pounds. How the hell is that going to happen? And how is that going to make his gas tank better? He's a massive middleweight, and now we have him at welterweight. So 2 things are going to happen. Either he's going to miss weight, or he's going to make weight and just feel the effects of the weight cut. But if this lasts only 1 round, that weight cut might not even matter. Rhys McKee's got to do his best to not get touched up in round 1 and get finished. Because I do think like you have an early round finisher in Chidi Njokuani, clearly the better striker of the 2, so dangerous with his knees, his elbows, his kicks, his punches. I mean, his striking in general is just dynamic. Rhys McKee is just a motor and very, very tough. But like if Njokuani empties his gas tank and is affected by this weight cut tremendously, Rhys McKee's a builder. Like he builds as the fight goes on, and he does throw crazy volume. This guy was out there outside of Khamzat Chimaev, who made him not even land a single strike in a fight. It's kind of crazy. Alex Morono threw 230 significant strikes, landed 124, attempted 3 takedowns. Like, that's good volume. Morono's tough. Morono finished several people, going the distance with Angelusa, 183 strikes, 77 landed, defended 4 takedowns. Like, I think if Rhys McKee gets out of the first round, he's very live to pull this victory off. And not necessarily from a finishing standpoint, because Chidi Njokuani's defeats typically are on the ground, where he's getting ground and pounded against Michal Olashechuk, ground and pounded against Gregory Rodriguez, Dusko, you know what I mean? Like, he looked good against Dusko Todorovic, looked good against Marc-Andre Barriault, but even back regionally on Bellator and everything, you see it's the ground and pound. It's guys that can get on top of him. I don't view Rhys McKee as a guy that can do that, but I do view Rhys McKee as a guy that throws crazy volume, and if you are gassed, he can win a decision. So I circled this fight. I'm rooting for Chidi Njokuani. My official pick will be Chidi Njokuani because I like his skills better than Rhys McKee, but I'm going to smash exposure to both sides. I think Rhys McKee's clearly live, and probably my bias because of one of my coaches is working with Chidi and Njokuani. But like I think Rhys McKee's pretty live to pick up a decision.
I think it's one of these situations where you have a fighter moving down in weight just because he's lost 3 in a row, and it's against legit competition. Rodriguez, Duraev, Olashaychuk, both those UFC wins have come by stoppage, by TKO. And you look at Rhys McKee. I mean, look, it's his second stint in the UFC. Hasn't got a UFC win here yet. I do like Chidi and Njokuani, but I do agree with you. I think the longer this fight goes, the more you do get worried if you are a Chidi and Njokuani fan and you're having him in your lines, because if this thing hits, let's say it hits the 3rd round, you do probably have a little bit of concern here. But for me, it is a Chidi and Njokuani pick in terms of that one. Next up, we got Nate Landwehr taking on Jamall Emmers. Emmers at minus 220 betting favorite for Nate Landwehr. He is a plus 180 betting underdog. He's 7,300 DK. Emmers is an 8,900. Landwehr was actually initially supposed to take on Pat Sabatini in this matchup. Of course, now Emmers seek in here. And if you look at Nate Landwehr, prior to that decision loss against Dan Ige, he had won 3 in a row here. And something to note on the Jamall Emmers side, the last time we did see him in action, he did miss weight.
Yeah, I mean, this is a pretty interesting fight. Like, I think this is a pretty skilled fight. And I really like Nate Landwehr just in general. So it's hard for me not to back him and get behind him. I mean, he made me look really stupid when I backed him against Dan Ige. I just think that his pace and his pressure and his aggressiveness is, very dangerous. And if you have any levels of quit in you, he will get you out of there. Dan Ige is really tough and hit him with some big shots. Austin Lingo even hit him with some big shots and hurt him. David Onama beat the hell out of him, but gassed out from beating him up. And then he was able to, withstand that adversity, not get completely finished, and came back and won a majority decision. The Ludovic Klein submission in round 3, that's looking better and better because Ludovic Klein's looking like he's on a completely different level. He's a grinder, man. Like, you're not going to, you can't steer me away from getting behind a grinder. I just do think, technically we are seeing some decline in his skills. If we saw Nate Landwehr in his prime in the UFC, we would have had some amazing fights. I do think that Jamall Emmers, despite being like an aged veteran, I still think he's relatively young as far as not showing his true potential. I think that he has very good striking. He's got a piston right hand. He has good wrestling to rely on. It's just, can he match the volume? Can he match the volume of Nate Landwehr? I'm going to say he can. And I like Jamall Emmers here. And I think that his strikes are very, very dangerous. And he can knock Nate Landwehr out. But man, is Nate Landwehr a motor. Like, he is a pace pusher. I don't hate getting behind him at all. But that Dan Ige fight really kind of made me shake my head a lot. So I'm going to back Jamall Emmers here at 8,900. I like the performance against Dennis Bazookia. Clearly, that was a mismatch. The split decision over Jack Jenkins and the unanimous decision over Hussein Ashkabov, I think, holds some merit. So I think one way or another, you're going to see Jamall Emmers kind of edge out Nate Landwehr.
Of course, we appreciate everyone tuning in for this episode of the Fight HQ podcast. Be sure to hit that thumbs up button if you're watching us here on YouTube, or if you listen to us on the podcast channels. Be sure to leave a rating and review. And of course, if you're not subscribed to the channel, be sure to do that. Great way to show your support for the channel. Of course, also, we got some links in the show notes of how you can support the channel and take advantage of an offer that we have some friends that are supporting the show here. And look, it's Nate Landwehr is just he's a guy that one of my favorite interviews I ever watch. When Nate Landwehr does an interview, just watch, because it is going to be pure entertainment here. I can see as once we get some ownership on this fight, I could see where maybe Emmers could be a little bit of a leverage play, just because of people trying to get to some of these 9,000 options. So I think that's something to pay attention to as the week goes on. Next up, we got a female matchup. We got Virna Jandiroba taking on Luque Godinez. Godinez, a 2-1 betting fair, plus 170 for Jandiroba. Jandiroba, 7,500 on DK. And for Luque Godinez, she is 8,700, Pete.
Yeah, women's strawweight, right? I think that a lot of underdogs are alive always. And Luque Godinez is a fighter I think that the entire market is higher on than where they should be. I think that Luque Godinez is a very talented fighter, good offensive wrestler, solid defensive wrestler, kind of fell in love with her hands a little bit, questionable IQ. And the IQ is what made me circle this fight. I don't mind getting to Virna Jandiroba. I do think that Luque Godinez is the better fighter. The better jiu-jitsu practitioner it's no question. It's Virna Jandiroba. But like Jandiroba has shown, some inabilities to get the fight to the mat when she's going up against other talented grapplers. She went 1 of 8 in the takedown department against Amanda Hebos, 3 of 8 against Angela Hill. Angela Hill has improved takedown defense, but you should probably get higher numbers than that. 3 of 7 against Marina Rodriguez, and typically didn't really do much. Like in all 3 of those fights I just talked about, she didn't even attempt a submission. She got a knockdown over Amanda Hebos, but it was all control time. So she's kind of like wet blanketing people, like sandbagging people. 12 minutes of control against Marina Rodriguez, 7 minutes against Angela Hill, 3 minutes against Amanda Hebos. On the flip side, we have Lupe Godinez, who can defend takedowns. She defended 6 against Tabitha Ricci, and I think Tabitha Ricci's takedowns are better than Virna Jandiroba. I do think that Jandiroba's jiu-jitsu is more dangerous than anything that Tabitha Ricci, Elise Reed, Emily Ducote, Cynthia Calvillo, Angela Hill, all these fighters bring to the table, and like if you go back to Lupe Godinez's debut, that's a long time from now, right? Like April of 2021. She lost a split decision to Jessica Penne, and she got 3 of 9 takedowns. But Jessica Penne kept taking her damn back and kept putting her in bad spots. And like if Virna Jandiroba gets that, it could literally be a wrap. And just like constantly round after round getting her back taken against Jessica Penne is just not a good look. But granted, that was her debut. Penne with the veteran treatment. And since then, we have seen Lupe Godinez look a lot better. The Ariana Carnelossi fight, in my opinion, is clearly her best performance. The Elise Reed one was good as well. But like the Carnelossi one, she looked incredible. Slamming her, all this and that. I'm picking Lupe Godinez to win a decision. But I circle this fight because I don't hate getting to the underdog. Because like, I don't know, man. Like sometimes just jiu-jitsu gaps are way too wide. And the jiu-jitsu skills of Virna Jandiroba are clearly live. So I don't hate the Jandiroba underdog, but I'm going to pick Godinez to win a decision.
And, of course, Godinez has won 3 of her last 4 fights via decision. She's on a 4-fight winning streak. And you look at Jandiroba, I mean, back-to-back wins against Angela Hill, Marina Rodriguez. Those are great wins for her. Of course, if you look at her losses, which have all come via decision in the UFC, Cara Esparza, Mackenzie Dern, and Amanda Hebos here, this is one of those ones that if you're looking for an underdog on DraftKings this week, I think Virna Jandiroba may be one of my more popular underdog plays this week.
I don't hate it. I mean, it's women's MMA. I mean, like, but typically, like, jiu-jitsu practitioners do not have the best takedowns. And when they're going up against a wrestler, it's very easy for that wrestler to defend those takedowns. The issue is if it hits the mat and then they can use a sweep or they can get a back take, that's when it becomes a completely different game. But as far as just like initiating the takedowns, I think Loopy will be wise to it. Like limited and minimal takedown attempts on her own, because why go there? Why? Just stand up. I think that Jandiroba's stand-up's not that bad, but I think that Godinez has the better hands.
Let's move over to our next match. We got Julio Arce taking on Herbert Burns. Herbert Burns is a plus 300 betting underdog, minus 400 for Julio Arce. Arce is 9,500. On DK, Herbert Burns is 6,700. Of course, Julio Arce was initially scheduled to take on Cody Garbrandt earlier this month at UFC 299, but that matchup ultimately fizzled due to Julio Arce pulling out due to an injury. Arce, he started 2-0 in the UFC, Pete, but he has alternated losses and wins since starting 2-0 in the UFC. But if you look at his losses, I mean, you're talking about his last 2 losses against Montel Jackson and Song Yudong.
Yeah, I mean, like, Julio Arce has been a tough out for his entire UFC tenure, right? Like, I mean, pick his debut, he beat Dan Ige, then Daniel Tamer, lost a split to Shaman Moraes, knocked out Julian Erosa, joined the club. Hakeem Dawodu split decision.
I'm not here for this hatred of Juicy J. I saw you in Discord last week. I saw you give me props.
Of course I did, because, my God, Ricardo Ramos with the worst IQ in the world. He just got back-to-back guillotine, and he's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Give that shit back, dude. Andre Ewell knockout. Then he lost to Song Yudong and got knocked out. Guess what? Song Yudong's knocked out so many people and is just so athletic for the division. Victory, solid victory over Daniel Santos. I think that was actually really, really good victory. And then a unanimous decision defeat to Montel Jackson. Montel Jackson's really tough, really physical, really big for the division. He didn't get finished by him. So guess what? Now he's going up with a layup here against Herbert Burns, who I think is way better than what most people give him credit for.
Mhm.
The issue is like it just doesn't last, man. Like his cardio collapses completely after round one, halfway through round one. I remember, Jason, do you remember this? Like this is 4 years ago. Evan Dunham, Herbert Burns. I'm like, Evan Dunham's a jiu-jitsu black belt. Evan Dunham's pace is gonna break this kid. I see him breaking him over the course of the fight and picking up a huge, huge victory. Evan Dunham was like 6,800 or something like that. I remember I locked Evan Dunham in all my lineups. It didn't matter. Herbert Burns took him down and submitted him. I mean, like I think it was a rear naked choke. I don't even remember, but submitted him, and his jiu-jitsu is just incredible. So if he can put you in a very dangerous position, you're in trouble. Like you're in trouble. It's just like, he's been able to get a takedown in every single fight. Got one against Nate Landwehr, Evan Dunham, Daniel Pineda got 3, and then 1 against Bill Algeo. The issue is if you can defend the submission attempts, not get tapped, and just provide some resistance, you can break him. I mean, he was completely broken and carried out of the cage in his previous performance against Bill Algeo, broken against Daniel Pineda. Does not have that dog in him like his brother Gilbert does. No fault of his own. I mean, he's very talented, but he just can't dig deep like his brother. I think that Julio Arce is clearly the side. I don't think Arce is a great DFS play. He usually isn't. I mean, 63, 76, 89, 87, and 81 in his victories. It's just like, and he has 89 for a KO against Julian Erosa, 87 against Andre Ewell. I think Arce KOs him in the second round. It's just like, I don't know, man. 9,500 is just restrictive of a price tag. It should be the easiest fight of Arce's career, just from a, finishing potential, but just has to avoid the ground, cannot get subbed, can't fall into the guard and get triangled or arm barred, and definitely can't have his back taken. So I think Arce's a veteran, and coming from a good camp at Tiger Schulman's and being in New Jersey, I think that he rises to the occasion, and unfortunately, finishes Herbert Burns, and I think Herbert Burns will retire.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Herb Burns, his last fight was back in July of 2022, and one of the notes I have on this fight, Pete, is trusting the gas tank of Herb Burns. If this thing gets into the second and third round, and Paul in the chat brings up a great point, is Arce worth 9,500 from a DFS perspective?
I mean, I think that he's probably the safest to pick up a victory. But I just don't think from an upside standpoint. I mean, unless Herbert Burns brings next level toughness, worked on his cardio, which as a returning fighter, his brother probably big brothered him and said like, yo, listen, you need to get your shit right. And we're going to fix this and this and this. And maybe he comes out better and tries to show he's so tough. And maybe Arce knocks him down a couple times. But outside of getting some knockdowns, I just don't see how he really pays off 9,500. So I think he gets 100 points or close to it. It's just there's some other fighters with some crazy upside.
Next up, we got Dennis Bazooka taking on Connor Matthews. Bazooka is a minus 130 betting favorite, plus 110 for Connor Matthews, 8,400 for Bazooka on DK. Connor Matthews is 7,800. And one of my notes on this one is, I mean, if you look at Dennis Bazooka, he's a guy that I'm very familiar with. Ray Longo's really talked this guy up over a couple years, but he's had 2 tough matchups in the UFC, taking on Sean Woodson and Jamall Emmers. This is the official UFC debut for Connor Matthews. But, I mean, look, it's the regional strength of schedule for Connor Matthews is what scares the crap out of me here.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I mean, like, I think both fighters scare the crap out of me from a betting standpoint. So from a betting standpoint, I'll probably stay away. It's kind of weird that Bazooka is a favorite. He's the favorite here. I think as a breaking into the UFC debuting fighter and Connor Matthews, like, you're licking your chops at this matchup. I just think that is one of the easiest fights in the UFC to go up there against Dennis Bazooka. Bazooka could go out there and beat Connor Matthews, but this is extremely winnable, like a very winnable fight. I don't know how to feel about this fight. We haven't really seen the true Bazooka through 116 significant strikes against Sean Woodson, who's just a complete frame mismatch against everybody within the featherweight division. Landed 42 out of 116, attempted a takedown, got taken, you know what I mean? Like, got a reversal. He just didn't do anything. 27 fantasy points, and then he got knocked out in 49 seconds against Jamall Emmers. So threw 7 strikes, landed 3. I don't know what to expect. I think that it's a winnable fight for both fighters. I think that Connor Matthews has the higher finishing potential in this bout. Regionally, Bazookia is picking up victories, but like they tend to go long, whereas Connor Matthews is fighting low level competition, but like he's getting submission finishes, he's getting knockouts, hits really hard. I think he's got the better wrestling in the situation. So like I think that the striking's pretty even. You have Matthews switching stances. You have Bazookia probably hitting a little harder, with Matthews probably being the better wrestler. So I think this is a grimy fight. I think it's going to be a grind. I'm going to side with Connor Matthews to pick up a decision here. But do I love it, Jason? No. I circled this fight, Dennis Bazookia, Connor Matthews, and then I've circled the co-main event between Vicente Luque and Joaquin Buckley. And I'm like, which one do I like more? I don't really know. I don't really know which one's going to get more points. I think that there's more unknowns regarding the Dennis Bazookia, Connor Matthews fight. But sometimes it's good to embrace the unknown and get better fantasy scores. So I don't know, man. I'm going to lean with Connor Matthews. This kid, Dennis Bazookia, could have a breakout performance, but I really haven't seen anything from it. And Longo's talked. He's like, he's got to go out there and perform. Bazooka looks good. He looks great in the gym, but he's got to go out there and perform. And I don't know. I'll take the guy who had a really good performance on Dana White's Contender Series in his return after getting destroyed against Francis Marshall. So I'm going Connor Matthews.
Yeah, the strength of schedule. By the way, how many losses do you think JLS has at this point?
Probably like 100.
109.
Ooh. For
people who know regional MMA, Jay Ellis is a name, and I'll never forget. I had a regional matchmaker say this to me. He goes, yes, Jay Ellis has a horrible record, but Jay Ellis shows up.
Yeah.
He has 16 wins, 109 losses.
I'll tell you what, I had a buddy of mine message me. He's like, hey, how about this guy? Let's get you to fight this guy. I'm like, dude, I'm not fighting that fucking guy. Like, I'm just not doing it. It ain't worth it for me. Like, I don't know. That's such a bad look. And it's like the MMA community's catching on, right? Like,
hey, he did fight
Jay Ellis. He
did fight at 55 back in January.
Yeah, Jason, I don't know. I'm not fighting no guy with
How about this? He fought on January 13th, loses via submission in 1 minute and 13 seconds, fights 7 days later in a boxing match.
Yeah, I mean, like, he's making a career out of it. I mean,
literally, in my notes, and I sent this to Pete, and this is about Connor Matthews. I go, regional strength of schedule, poor. Jay Ellis, enough said.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, and look, and there is, and I'll say this, I don't think there's anything wrong of fighting showcase matchups. Let's just call it what it is. But it's one of these things of like, it's always a concern when you get to this level. And it's always a concern for me when I see that. But to me, the pick would be Dennis Bazooka, but I don't have a lot of confidence in it. I just don't.
How do you think the fight goes? Like, I just don't know. Like, what does Bazooka do?
Yeah.
I mean, it's an open question. Like, I really, like, if somebody has a strong prediction about what Bazooka is going to do to Connor Matthews, please tell me. Because I just want to understand the line. Why is he a favorite?
I do feel like this is the UFC's trying to put him in a place to succeed. Being in Jersey, trains in that area, that's kind of my general thought process.
Okay.
But yeah, I have confidence on either side of the equation? No, I don't.
Yeah. You think the likelihood is it goes 15 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, look, I think maybe
I might. So if I ask you this question, Bazooka Matthews, co-main event, what's your priority?
Ooh, damn, that's a good one.
Because they're close in salary, you know?
I almost feel like I'd rather roster Bazooka Matthews just because of the volatility.
Okay, so embracing that unknown. All right. Yeah, it's very, like, nerve-wracking when you do that, but it tends to work out.
Let's move over to our next matchup, which, by the way, is actually a rematch from a matchup that took place back in 2020 in Brave, as we got Ebo taking on Anton. Anton, a plus 110 betting underdog. Ebo minus 130. He's 8,300 DK, 7,900 for Anton. And, one of my things about, Anton in this one is, like, you talk about, this guy has not had an easy road in the UFC. He's 0-3 in the UFC, but his losses are against Almeida, Petrino, and Pedro. This guy has not been given an easy road in the UFC.
Yeah, absolutely not. I mean, Anton Turkalj has, fought like really, really tough competition, and, like that, he's in a tough division, but like he's accepting anything that comes his way. Jailton Almeida fight, that was a nightmare. The Vitor Petrino one is the one that really makes me scratch my head, and it was impressive because his striking defense is like the worst attribute about his skill set. He leaves his chin out there. He kind of just he does not see shots coming, and the only defense he has to avoid shots is by clinching. Like, he does not shell up. He does not roll with punches. He does not have any footwork. It's just like a deer in headlights when people are humming hooks at him. And that's why he's been knocked out. And that's why he was hurt numerous times against Vitor Petrino. That's why he was eventually knocked out against Tyson Pedro. The thing is, though, is like sometimes he doesn't get knocked out. He just gets rocked. Those fighters get a little overzealous. They close the gap. He initiates the clinch. And then it's like he starts to wear and grind on people. And, this is what I'm thinking is going to happen in this bout. I mean, his opponent's a very, very, very dangerous fighter. Hits really hard. Anton Turkalj already has a victory over Ebo. I think that, Ebo had some success in the first fight, which you can clearly see, was even getting takedowns. But the better grappler of the two is Anton Turkalj. I mean, he's a grinder. And I'll take a guy that has 3 fights in the UFC. He's acclimated, and he's been tested, whether he's been finished in 2 of them. I don't care. He went 15 minutes with Vitor Petrino, which Petrino's looking like a damn specimen in the UFC right now. And he put Petrino in some compromising situations. So, like, do I like his striking defense? Absolutely not. But like, Ebo Aslan is the slight favorite here, because people are anticipating him to pick up his 4th consecutive KO. Clearly can happen. But like, I do think that a guy who holds a victory over somebody, you kind of see the dangers of your opponent at first glance. And I think Anton might feel a little bit more comfortable in this matchup. I think he's going to close the distance, work his takedown, and then pick up a submission victory. So I'm calling rear naked choke in the second round.
And, of course, the first time they met was a second-round submission here. If you look at Anton, I mean, look, it's his 4th fight in the UFC, probably his last fight on his UFC contract. You got it going up against a rematch here where his opponent is making his UFC debut, won on Dana White's Contender Series to get this matchup here. And, of course, all of his wins have come via finish. This is one of those ones, Pete, it's probably a boom-bust play of the week.
100% it is. And it's like, if I didn't have to do this show, I wouldn't pick this damn fight. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I would not be talking about this fight, but like, I have to pick one side or another. And, you give me a guy who has 3 UFC fights against strong competition, showed in one of them that he can go 15 minutes and push a ridiculous pace, put his opponents in tough spots. I'm going to side with him over an early first round finisher. So I think the blueprints out there are how to beat Ebo Aslan. And I think it's going to be very, very reminiscent of the first encounter. So, first encounter was a rear naked choke. Second encounter, I think, is going to be a rear naked choke.
And, of course, if you want to catch that, the initial matchup is actually on the Brave YouTube channel. You can check that out if you want to go back and watch that. Next up, we got a female matchup. Dudakova taking on Gato. Gato is a minus 155 betting favorite. She's 8,500 DK. Dudakova is plus 130, and she is 7,700 on DK, Pete.
Yeah, not really in love with this fight. I mean, like, I think that, I was kind of anticipating the market to like Dudakova. And I was surprised to see Gato as the favorite, because I was like, oh man, I'm going to get the Gato as an underdog. And I'm like, shoot, the market has Gato as the favorite. So I'm like, okay, maybe they're just seeing exactly what I'm seeing. I think like Victoria Dudakova's previous performance against Jinh Yu Frey, not really the most inspiring. Quick finish over Estela Nunes because of that broken arm as she went to plant to kind of stop herself from getting taken down. Complete fluke. Boosts her box score. I thought Dudakova is a very strong wrestler coming into the UFC, and it hasn't looked as good. And I thought she was going to completely dismantle Jinh Frey in that encounter, who's a true atom weight, not even like a flyweight. It's weird to me. So like, I don't know. I think that between strawweight and flyweight, I don't know. I think that Gato's pretty damn big, man. I think Gato's pretty damn big for the division. Just went up against Ariane Lipski, threw 186 significant strikes, was unsuccessful with her takedowns, went 0 of 7, 3 of 6 in the takedown department against Tracy Cortez. And Sijara Eubanks, I mean, call her what she is, but I mean, high hopes for Sijara Eubanks, mixing in takedowns, good boxing, and was able to hit her in the body with a front kick and TKO her. So I just like the strength of schedule against Ariane Lipski, Tracy Cortez, and Sijara Eubanks. I think Gato is going to be a little too physical for Dudakova, maybe put her in some compromising positions, trying to get a submission victory, but I do think that Gato ends up getting the nod via unanimous decision. So 8,500, I'm going to go with Gato. Like I said, totally anticipated Dudakova to be a big favorite, but she wasn't. So give me Gato here.
Dudakova did miss weight in her last matchup, and she's only gone to the decision twice in her career. You do mention about that strength of competition that Gato had in the UFC here. But, I mean, look, we all know the trend in the UFC. More times than not, female matchups do go over 2.5 rounds. So something I'm not really going to sit there here. And I was like you. I thought Dudakova, this line would be a little closer than what it is here, but Gato's going to be a pick. Next up, we got Petrosky taking on Malkoun. Malkoun, a minus 240 betting favorite, plus 195 for Petrosky. Petrosky 7,200 DK, 9,000 for Malkoun. Of course, Petrosky coming off that first round loss against Michelle Pahea. Malkoun coming off that DQ loss against Cody Brundage, where he was a 6-1 betting favorite.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, man. You got two wrestlers here. Different styles of wrestling, but like sometimes when two wrestlers clash, it turns out to be a striking matchup. And I think the more powerful striker is clearly Andre Petrosky. I think that the finishing potential just in general lies with Andre Petrosky a little bit more. Very good submission skills, probably better submission skills than Jacob Malkoun, training out of that Philly area. It's just like very, very, very good competition inside the training room. Outside the UFC fights, Petrosky stays active with grappling tournaments and grappling super fights, something I really love, and I started doing myself. Supposed to have a grappling tournament this weekend, so we'll see how that goes. So I've been laid up being sick, so we'll see. I'm gonna go out there and coach my guys and go have a little fun. But I'm excited for it. But Petrosky staying active, I think, is something very, very important. Jacob Malkoun's a pace pusher and he's a grinder, and it's kind of like there's multiple fights on this card where you have an early finisher versus a pace pusher, and it's kind of like what happens, right? Like Petrosky early round 1 can knock out Jacob Malkoun with a big shot. Not in love with his striking. I think eventually Jacob Malkoun displays that tenacity and just his relentless motor to go for that single leg, and he has that single leg dump down to a T, just taking everybody out with it. Going the distance with Brendan Allen, and in my opinion, beating Brendan Allen, getting 7 of 14 takedowns, having 7 minutes of control time, 7 minutes of control time against Nick Maxwell with 9 of 13 takedowns, 6 of 16 against AJ Dobson, 9 minutes of control time. Abdul Razak Al Hassan, 8 of 24 with 11 minutes, 2 submission attempts, and then completely smoking Cody Brundage before he landed that illegal shot. So very, very stupid illegal shot in his previous bout. But I think like the longer this fight goes, it starts to tilt in Malkoun's favor, and the wrestling skills of Petrosky could actually boost the totals of Malkoun, so he gets back to his feet and he gets taken down again. So I'm going to be smashing the Jacob Malkoun line. I circled Andre Petrosky from an early round finishing potential, and also from an anaconda standpoint, very, very good anaconda choke. And if Malkoun leaves his head out there on anything, like even that single leg dump, I think that he can get anaconda. So I'm going to just be a little bit more aggressive with this fight, but I'm going to lean towards Jacob Malkoun.
I don't mind getting Petrosky as a punt play in terms of GPPs just because of that finishing upside. By the way, I just saw something come across my timeline.
What's up?
Luke Rockhold is signed with Karate Combat.
Ooh. That's actually a good move for him.
His debut is against Joe Schilling.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Damn. I tried. I grappled Joe Schilling. That was fun. But
yeah, just all I came across
I
was like, oof, I don't know if I love that matchup for Luke Rockhold, but
I mean, I don't really mind. Schilling's really aggressive though, so that's probably not going to work out the best for him with small gloves. We'll see though. We'll see.
Yeah, Karate Combat actually, for people who have not checked it out, it's a really fun show to watch. If you haven't checked it out, I would highly recommend it. Of course, our opening matchup, we've got one of our biggest favorites on the card, lawfully a minus 390 betting favorite, plus 290 for Pacheco, lawfully 9,400 on DK, and for Pacheco, he is 6,800.
Yeah, I mean, Angel Pacheco had an incredible Dana White's Contender Series fight against Silva. Crazy volume, crazy toughness, got hurt numerous times, put out tremendous output in that fight, like ridiculous numbers, and bit down on the mouthpiece, and was so impressive that Dana White wanted to get him into the UFC regardless. Yeah, it was just like, dude, you fought like an absolute legend and warrior, and it's because of his counterpart was willing to stand and trade. I don't think that Callan Lawfren's going to do that. Like, I think that Lawfren likes to trade as much as he needs to, but he likes to go to the takedown well. He really tried against Taylor Lapilus, went 2 of 11 in the takedown department, and it's because Lapilus has good takedown defense and also more movement to him. I think Angel Pacheco is going to be right there on the center line and kind of flat-footed at times. If Lawfren gets into a brawl and is unsuccessful at takedowns, can Pacheco win this? Absolutely. His volume and his tenacity and his toughness, there's so much dog a part of him that like he can win any fight that's on the feet. It's just like, I think this touches all levels, and I think Callan Lawfren's takedowns are probably going to be too much, going to tire out Angel Pacheco. He's going to be frustrated, and it's not going to be the fight that he was looking forward to. So give me Callan Lawfren for a dominant decision victory here at 9,400.
Yeah, I'm with you as well. Of course, if you got any questions, be sure to line those up in the chat right now, or hit them up in Discord. Of course, that's a great way to have a great conversation with the community of developing your lineups here. Let's get into our straight up fight picks, Pete. Main event. Give me Erin Blanchfield.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Blanchfield.
I will go Luque in the co-main event, but do kind of have concerns there.
Yeah, I have a lot of concerns both sides. I'm gonna go Buckley though.
Give me Bruno Silva.
Bruno Silva.
Ruziboev.
Ruziboev for me.
I'll go Algeo.
Algeo.
Njokuani.
Picking Njokuani, but I do not like the weight at all.
Emmers.
Emmers.
Give me underdog number 1 and Jandiroba.
All right, I'm going to go Godinez.
Arce. Bazooka.
I'm going to go Connor Matthews.
Next one is a coin flip for me. Give me the slight underdog in Anton.
Yeah, I'm going to go Anton Tecali.
Gato. Give me underdog number 3, Andre Petrosky.
I don't hate it, man. I really think that Anaconda choke is how we can do it. Give me Jacob Malkoun, though.
And then the opening fight of the night, I'll go Laughlin.
Yeah, Laughlin for me as well.
Let's pull up some questions that were in Discord. Value plays under 8K and 3 core plays on DraftKings. So I think in terms of core plays for me, it would probably be Bruno Silva would be number 1 for me. Number 2 would be Arce, because I have the most confidence in him going out there and getting a win, but the price tag does kind of concern me. And my third one, I hate to give another 9,000 option, but I think it's Algeo.
Yeah, I'm giving 3 9,000 options just because I think that it's so damn good. Silva, Ruziboev, and Algeo. I think that those 3 are just really, really in strong spots.
To me, your value plays, I think you have to look at Manon Firot at 7,400, especially with, the 5-round nature aspect of it. You talk about this every week. I mean, finding that fire that maybe can get you 50 points, even in a loss, can get you out to be optimal there. Other value plays, Petrosky, that's a GPP pump play for me. You mentioned about how he, the submission ability there. Other ones, I think Anton at 7,900 is another interesting value play under 8K.
Yeah. I'm with you. I go Anton, Connor Matthews, Rhys McKee circled, Petrosky circled. I mean, like I'm circling these guys. Am I flag planting anybody? No. If I had to flag plant anybody, it's probably Bruno Silva,
Mhm.
which he's not an underdog. It's just I feel really confident he knocks out Weidman.
Let's rank the 9K options here. So we're talking about the 9K options. So we got Silva at 9,300, Ruziboev at 9,200, Algeo at 9,100, Arce 9,500, Malkoon 9,000, Loughlin at 9,400. Look, I think that probably Bruno Silva would be my number one just because of that knockout upside.
Yeah, I'm going Silva 1, Ruziboev 2. Malkoon because of the volume takedowns 3.
Mm-hmm.
4 Arce, 5 Algeo, Loughlin 6. I mean, I don't know. It's like really close, right? Like I feel pretty confident they're all going to win.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like I'm trying to like find paths of scoring high, and like I think Loughlin goes the distance. I think Algeo goes the distance. I think Malkoon goes the distance, but his takedowns are just going to be they should be crazy. And then we got 3 finishers in Silva, Ruziboev, and Arce.
And Tristan asked about best takedown upside. Would you say Malkoon is your number one guy?
I mean, like he's pumping out the highest numbers of anybody on the slate. I mean, just it comes down to like Andre Petrosky's a good wrestler. It's just like the gas tank. He looks really labored at times, and I just wonder, like having all that muscle eventually in a crazy grappling match. Maybe it just taxes him. But this guy's been doing grappling tournaments too. Like it's really tough to me. But Malkoon's single leg takedown looks damn near unstoppable. And he wasn't submitted against Brendan Allen. So it's like.
Yeah. Best punt play for me from a GPP aspect is Petrosky, just because of the finishing upside, by understanding, if he can't get that submission in, say, round 1, early round 2. But like if I was going to look for a safe punt play, Jandiroba is the one that sticks out to me at 7,500.
All right. Yeah. I mean, I don't hate it. I mean, like as a punt play, you're looking like 7,300 and below. I think Petrosky's right. I think that like Landwehr is just a decision guy in this situation. I don't think he's going to knock out Emmers or sub him. He could. Jandiroba, very, very live for the submission. Rhys McKee, I think, is the ugliest selection that actually could win a decision, though. So it's like, but I don't consider him a punt play. I think you consider him a legitimate underdog, and Petrosky stands out at that bottom bunch.
Let's get some of Sam's questions here. Favorite inside the distance fights? Weidman Silva would be at the top of my list there. Even though I think if Chris Weidman can pull it off, it's probably a decision victory, but I do like the finishing upside there. For Bruno Silva, other ones that stick out to me, Arce Burns, just because I can't trust the gas tank of Hurt Burns. To me, it's if he wins early. If not, I think he gets finished in the second and third round. The Ebo Anton fight, I think, is another one that I really do like as an inside the distance fight.
I'm with you.
In terms of live dogs here, known Firot. I think Rhys McKee is an interesting live dog because of Njokuani coming back down to 170 pounds. I mentioned about Virna Jandiroba. I mentioned about Petrosky, and those would be my top ones.
I'm with you, man. I mean, it's pretty. There's a few underdogs that I'm circling. There's plenty that I'm not getting to. If they come through, they come through. But like, I think it's pretty easy to see where we're lying this week.
Sam's over under on finishes 8.5. Give me the under. I think that's a little too high.
A little too much, bud.
Yeah, that's too much there. Of course, as always, we appreciate everyone who tunes in for this episode of the podcast. Of course, be sure to join our Discord channel. Totally free. Join, great conversations going on there. We'll have the DraftKings contest up later on this week. We'll put it in Discord so you can get in that contest. Someone had asked me about updating the standings for this year. I will get that updated this week as well. I'll probably get that in Discord probably tomorrow. I'll be able to get that updated so you can see where you stand in the Fight HQ standings for 2024. Pizza, anything else you want to mention before we get out of here?
No, I just want to say thank you guys so much for the support. If you guys can keep, sharing our content, it really goes a long way. Commenting something on the video, like let us know what you want to see. Tell us who you think that you're planting your flag for underdogs. Whether you agree with us, disagree with us, have some conversation here on this YouTube video so that it helps get the video out there for us. Hit the like button for us, get us over 150 likes. and help us get to 1,000 subscribers. I mean, it's been a long grind for us. But yeah, we're starting to approach those numbers, and we do appreciate you guys.
Yeah, and if there's any additional content you want to see from myself or Pete, whether it's video content here on YouTube, maybe it's video content you want to see us put in Discord, let us know. We want to hear what you guys want to hear. Is there something, maybe there's you want us to put maybe a 5 or 10 minute video out there in terms of maybe the betting odds, in terms of this one, maybe prop plays, things like that. We want to hear from you. We want to hear what you want to hear from Fight HQ. Of course, we always appreciate everyone who tunes in for this episode podcast. Of course, we'll be here next week. We've got another fight night card. Pete, if you ask me who the main event next week's card, I have no clue.
I don't know either.
I know we have a card next week. I'm pretty sure it's an Apex card. Pretty sure
isn't it Chris Curtis against Brendan Allen? Am I thinking way too far ahead? I feel like I'm right, but we'll see. We'll see when we get off the show.
I believe you're right, because didn't Curtis take that fight on short notice?
Yeah, Brendan Allen's gonna smoke him.
Yeah, I mean, the odds of me knowing, obviously we got UFC 300 is coming up, approaching us, but yeah, because Brendan Allen was supposed to take on, who's his initial opponent?
I don't know.
Yeah, it was a change in opponent. That's why Chris Curtis ended up taking this matchup. And let's see, next week, it's Alan Curtis. Also, we got the PFL is back next week. The heavyweights and women's flyweights kick off next week. Of course, that fight card actually just went through a couple of changes. PFL announced that yesterday. So, we'll, of course, we'll be here next week, talk about everything going on in the world of the UFC. And if you want any additional content, just let us know. And as always, we appreciate everyone tuning in this for episode of the Fight HQ podcast.